The rhetoric is still present, but the tone is softer. It doesn't impose a single truth. It tries to understand together. This is one of the longest-running debates in modern history, so long that it outlived revolutions, brought down empires, pushed countries into bankruptcy, and split the world in two. For more than a century, capitalism and socialism were not just economic ideas. They became boundary lines that determined which side people stood on. But there is a truth that is often overlooked. Neither of these systems worked the way they were described in textbooks. Not fully, not completely, not flawlessly. When conditions became harsh, during war, famine, inflation, and collapse, it wasn't theories that spoke, but reality. And reality was often uncomfortable. In fact, the story doesn't begin with capitalism or socialism at all. For most of human history, there was no such thing as an economy. There was survival, struggle. Kings ruled, landowners owned everything, and peasants worked simply to avoid starving. Life moved slowly. Change was almost non-existent. One person's gain usually meant another person's loss. One person's plus was another's minus. Then the Industrial Revolution emerged and turned everything upside down. Machines replaced muscle and manual labor. Factories were built. Production accelerated. And for the first time, ordinary people could earn money, accumulate capital, and invest. This was a major turning point. Production increased. Some of those ordinary people became wealthy, but at the same time massive injustices surfaced. Environmental pollution grew in cities. Children worked long hours. Poverty became visible, undeniable. Yet one thing could not be denied. Capitalism had led to an unprecedented level of goods and wealth production, unlike anything the world had ever seen. And it was precisely at this moment that socialism emerged, not as a dream, but as a reaction born from lived experience. Thinkers like Marx and Engels believed this new system was not fair. In their view, the problem was not individuals, but the structure itself. If production were shared collectively, if need were prioritized over profit, goods, wealth, and capital, then a more just society could be achieved. This idea was especially powerful for people living under harsh conditions. It seemed logical, it appeared moral, but ideas are not tested in theory. They are tested in real life. The first major step toward socialism came after the Russian Revolution. A new system was established. The state controlled everything. Production was centrally planned. The market disappeared. Over time, problems began to surface. It was unclear how much should be produced. What people actually needed could not be properly understood. Without competition, innovation slowed. Without incentives, motivation declined sharply. Famines emerged. Lines became normal. Agriculture collapsed, nearly disappearing. In order to keep the system functioning, steps were taken backward. The system was put into a kind of idle mode just to survive. But capitalism was far from innocent as well. The Great Depression of 1929 destroyed the lives of millions. Banks collapsed. Unemployment exploded. At that point, capitalism itself came under serious public scrutiny. So the world realized something important. Neither system could deliver on its promises on its own, without support. World War II pushed this debate to an entirely different level. The war strained nations and tested the reliability of their systems. In the post-war period, the question was no longer ideology, but results. Who lives better? Who is more productive and innovative? Who is more stable and resilient? The Soviet Union was powerful, but inefficient. Western societies lacked equality, but innovation found space to grow. Over time, the gap widened. The Soviet system remained rigid, failed to adapt, and eventually collapsed. But this did not mean capitalism was perfect. The 2008 crisis showed us that capitalism is still fragile. Debt, speculation, rumors, and inequality continue to grow without pause. The truth is, today there's no pure form of capitalism or socialism. Scandinavian countries use mixed systems in different ways because real life is more complex than ideologies. Human nature does not change. Power accumulates somewhere. The real issue is not that. The real issue is how it is balanced. The real questions are these. Which system can correct its own mistakes? Which one can limit power? Which one can encourage productivity without leaving anyone completely behind? History reminds us of one thing: systems that can adapt survive. They endure. They become sustainable. And perhaps this debate was never really about capitalism or socialism at all. The real debate has always been the same. Who will hold power, and how will it be constrained? Because power never disappears. It only changes hands. Don't forget to like and subscribe.